Good morning, everyone. Hello, Professor. Glad that you have joined us this week. And Sean, glad to see you both. Good morning. Doing great. Great weather here in Oklahoma City. I can't complain. I think we have turned the corner and winter is gone, even though we're supposed to have highs in the, I don't know, mid 50s, I think, over the weekend. Still nothing to complain about. What's up, Zippo Daily Fix? Glad that you have joined us as well. Got a little project today. Received this in the mail from our friend Bill Calkins, and cleaned up real well. To go searching for a tool or two here. While I was cleaning it up, the wick disappeared on me, and I was kind of walking around the house over Mester Park when I was doing it, so I wasn't paying real close attention. I'm not sure if it fell out or fell in, so we'll see if it comes out or not. I'd also mentioned in that video, I think, that I thought I had a replacement fuel screw, which I do have. Get or another fuel screw, but so anyway, that's what we're doing today. All right. It still seems as though there's an for some reason it's telling me watching right at the moment, and I'm getting you guys one, but I can also stream that I'm monitoring this on is jumping around and blurry. Okay. Let's see if that's any better. I was babysitting yesterday and didn't have access to Wi-Fi, and it kept confusing my phone. So I turned my Wi-Fi off on that phone that I'm doing the stream on. So I hope that that fixed it. It appears as though the video here that I'm looking at caught right up as well. So sorry about that. I appreciate you guys pointing that out so quickly. So anyway, like I said, this is the lighter we're going to be working on. I am certain that I have made a video for re-wicking a Cygnus lighter, but I'm not sure that I've made one for doing a Cygnus table lighter. So we'll see. We had also discussed in that video what the bear logo might be, and Dylan DePie had suggested that it might have something to do with the logo of the state of California. And the bear does look similar. I believe it's a grizzly bear. I'm not an expert on bears, but I did go look up a bunch of bear logos last week. But the only thing about this being for the state of California is that every one of the California logos that I saw that had the bear also had a star out here. anyway, I'd be glad if anybody has information on that, what that logo might be, to go ahead and shout it out. Maybe you know, maybe you just have an inkling that could help us chase it down. But a very nice Cygnus table lighter that was sent to me last week by our friend Bill Calkins, and I really appreciate it. This will be our third table lighter in our Penguin Cygnus collection. And they are all of the gold anodized variety. Have this Beefeater Gin, Stewart's Dundee Scotch Whiskey. Let me go grab the other one. And the Brothers Sewing Machine Corporation of Pennsylvania. That is the third of the working Cygnuses that we have. And then our parts lighter, or who knows, maybe we end up putting this one back together and selling it. But this is a duplicate of the Lapert Liquore CA Venezuela, which is the same as this one that works, with the Beefeater Gin and Stewart's Dundee whiskey emblems on the sides. Sean, I don't believe, I'm not sure exactly how the base is attached. That one looks like it may be, actually, yeah, it looks like they may be threaded on or somehow, well, probably not threaded. But it looks as though this piece may fit up into that, because I believe that this piece that you see that is threaded for the fuel screw, the very inside part here, is the same piece of metal as the base or the body of the lighter. And the base fits around it. But I don't know exactly how it would be applied to it, how it's being held in place. But I'll bet it's, I don't know, it almost seems to me like it would have to be an adhesive or epoxy of some sort. I don't see any tacks, weld tacks, or I don't see any glue either. Somebody with a better imagination than mine may be able to come up with a plausible method or two as to how that is affixed to that base. Yeah, and that's kind of weird too, Professor. So you're a former Californian as well, huh, man? You've been all over the place. Where'd it go? Well, I'm confusing. Did I get the... Yeah, I did get that back in the right one. That's my parts lighter. This is the one we're working on today. The way that bear and the star that's kind of sitting out there, like I said, off in this direction, it kind of, I don't know, it looks like a communist flag or something. I'm not trying to make a political statement when I say that. I guess I'd never really paid any attention to the California state flag. And I don't know, it didn't really seem to me to be the spirit of what I think of California. Of course, I'm very familiar with the Oklahoma state flag, but there's 49 others, and I probably should be more familiar than I am with at least with a bigger state like California. But even like New York, I have no idea what the New York state flag looks like. Maybe some of those other state flags I would recognize. I don't even know if I'd recognize the Texas state flag. What are you saying is Russian, Sean? The bear? I think you said Russian before I said, before I mentioned the California state flag with that star looking like a communist or socialist country. The bear, maybe. I guess there was a guy a couple of weeks ago in one of the, I don't remember which of the Facebook lighter groups it was. I don't think it was OTLS, and I don't think it was Zippo Addicts. It might have been Zippo Addicts, though. Anyway, this guy posted a catalog, like a promotional catalog from Coca-Cola, I believe from the 1950s or 60s. And in that advertisement, it had a ton of different products, but even lighters. You could order Zippo lighters from that catalog back then. There was a Coca-Cola Cygnus table lighter. There were Coca-Cola Scripto-View lighters. It seems like there was some kind of like cheaper Japanese flip-top lighter that you could buy. Several makers, at least 5 or 6, like a flat ad lighter for Coca-Cola. So, these were very common back in the day. There were a lot of different companies that advertised with these lighters. Obviously not to the extent that people advertised with Zippos. And, for whatever reason, some of the other companies like Ronson wasn't really a big advertising lighter company. Of course, some of those lighters were made that just the designs didn't really lend themselves to advertising. Whereas like a Zippo is just a big, well, not big, but a little rectangular canvas that you can advertise just about anything. Thought it was interesting as I was cleaning this up. There was a lot of adhesive and even some paper residue that had stuck by the adhesive to the base and all around these little feet. But you can see how those little feet have been worn down. The Brother sewing machine, it's worn down too, but they're not really sort of smashed like this bear lighter is. And then this Lappert Liquores, the one that's in a little bit better condition there. Maybe a little worn, but not too bad. Both of these lighters the feet are in pretty good shape. But this one obviously has been heavily used, heavily slid and set down on the counter and whatever else. It does show some scuffs, scratches, minor imperfections. But nothing wrong with that when you're talking about a lighter you're going to use, especially. And a lighter that'll stay in my personal collection. We did clean, the flint tube was clear, but just cleaned it of the dust and made sure everything was good there. Cleaned up the flint spring carriage. So I look forward to getting all this wadding out of here in a minute. And we're going to put a new copper woven Zippo type wick in it. It's just generic copper woven wick that you get off of eBay. And we're going to use the organic cotton coil for the wadding. So you think the bear may be Canada, Sean? That would be a good possibility too. When I think of bears in America, I think of north. I think of Montana, Yellowstone, that kind of, the Rocky Mountains, those kind of places. I'm not all that familiar with California. I've never been to California. Never been to Montana either. Just watched a bunch of movies that took place there. So how is the weather where all of you guys are? I also need to locate, well, this would be a good opportunity, I guess. I'm always getting questions about using tweezers to pull the wadding out of an old lighter. And, you know, sometimes tweezers may work just fine. Sometimes it's hard to get enough pressure with a pair of tweezers. I'm just going to set this wadding down here off camera rather than getting everything all dusty here. And anyway, my hands are weak in the first place, so you'd have to have a really good pair of tweezers. You can see how this is coming off in pieces. That's one of the reasons why the method that I've always used is basically just to use a pick. I'll use a pair of pliers to reach and grab the wadding when it gets close enough that I can reach in there and grab it. But pulling it up with a pair of tweezers Okay, sorry about that. It took me a minute. Excuse me, to find a pick. So it seems like the criticism, or the people in the YouTube, in the video or comments of YouTube videos that want to criticize me for using these picks are worried about me messing up those threads. I hope this whole thing doesn't come out in pieces that small. That will be we'll be here all day. Anyway, I've never had that. You know, the threads on these lighters are pretty deep, and you just running a pick even somewhat roughly across them isn't going to screw up the threads, or at least haven't had that happen to date. And I don't know, maybe somebody else with a pair of tweezers maybe you're more dexterous than I am. Maybe your hands are in a little bit better shape. But typically, if you can start getting this wadding to come out without tearing, then a lot of times you can shorten the job considerably by just not tearing it. But you know, it's one of those things where maybe sometimes it can be helped, maybe sometimes it can't. Hard to say. Let me just try the tweezers again. But you can see where these long tweezers, you got to get a lot of pressure on them in the first place. So that worked for us okay there. And we'll just see if any wick comes out here. Like I said, I was walking around the place over in Mesta Park while I was cleaning that, and there was a good amount of soot up in the top of it. So I was cleaning that with a household disinfectant cloth and a toothpick that had been broken off blunt on one end. See if the tweezers will help us here. Yeah, so maybe I am underselling the tweezers sometimes. I don't know that we ever would have gotten this job really started with the tweezers, but they have helped us to grab a hold of the wadding once or twice here. Usually a little shake as you pull will also keep that wadding moving in the right direction. And let's see. I'm going to have to find a longer. I'm starting to think that maybe I haven't done a Cygnus table lighter before, because it didn't dawn on me that I might not have a pick long enough. But I do have some pieces of the I can't tell whether the camera can pick up down that hole or not. I can't see down it. Anyway, I'm going to go grab one of the little rods that I can put down there. These are the same rods that I made the video with a long time ago. One of the first repair videos I made, where I put a piece of this rod, or a rod this size, in the drill of a chuck and then spin that in the flint tube to clear out the old degraded flint. It's not my choice method, but if you can't take a lighter apart from the top, then it's a method that you can use. It's not the most effective or efficient, but anyway, that's why I have these rods, for that and many other purposes. But let's just see if we can. Yeah, we still got a good amount of wadding in here, it feels like. Of course, this rod is a little flimsy. So there was another piece of wadding, and it feels feels like there's still something soft down in there. I'm not sure how well the camera is picking up any of that. Right there. That may have been our last piece. Feels like I'm hitting metal surfaces all the way around in there. So that should be good. I'm going to get all these. We will use some of these tools but not others. Putting the new wick in. Who are you speaking of that used to bear hunt, Sean? What's up, Azrael? Glad that you have joined us today, my friend. Glad that all of you are here. (38°F) in Montana, Sean, or the professor says. Touch of rain, cloudy. We got none of that in Oklahoma City today, Professor. It is. I think we're getting up to 82, somewhere in that neighborhood. But I was out on the balcony just before we started up here. And I just had on a t-shirt, no jacket. We're going to go ahead and split this. Maybe some lighters that getting in that fuel hole, and that's not a tiny fuel hole, but still I think we were going to be best off to at least split this cotton in half. Or something like that. Anyway, hopefully we can get it all down in one strand. Today I'm going to re-wick and put new wadding in this Penguin Cygnus table lighter that Bill Calkins sent me last week. Really nice. Perfect kind of lighter for me. Not so perfect that it seems like it would be better off making money and being in somebody else's collection, and but not so marred up that it's not still attractive to use. And of course I never sell any lighter that anyone sends me unless they specifically tell me to, like the stuff that Gavin sent me, all that Tobacciana advertisement, and the Zippos also that he sent. But like I say, perfect lighter for me simply because it's not in such great shape that I feel like it needs to be making money or can't be touched. That's the thing I'm struggling with about my Bob Dylan Zippo right now, is just doesn't seem to make sense to have that in my collection and it to never even get lit. So let me catch up here on the chat before I get started here. Yeah, I've seen similar things, Sean. I've seen people. Seems like somebody told me to stick a toothpick in there and twist it, and it'll pull it out. I don't know. Obviously, you're a little bit more limited in a lighter like this, where it's going to have to reach. My picks wouldn't even reach; they bottomed out. So, anyway, there's many ways to get a job done usually, and a lot of times not even a correct way, just different ways. But like I said, I'm somewhat limited. Tweezers may work better for some other folks. They worked a little bit better there than I thought they would, but we also didn't use them to dig it out from where it was packed in tight. And that's where my carpal tunnel ridden hands give me some problems from time to time. Sean says it's a nice day there in the UK. Are you talking about in California that they used to hunt bear? Because Sean, they still hunt bear in America. Well, maybe not still. Maybe we hunt them again. But you can hunt bear. I believe it's back to every state, every county in Oklahoma. There's now an open bear season. It used to just be the four far southeastern counties. I know it's opened up beyond that. So yeah, there's still plenty of people that hunt bear in America. Me personally, it's not something, I've never been keen on eating meat eaters or omnivores. If they eat meat, then I'm probably, as part of their regular diet at least, I'm going to stay away from it. No, well, there's been all kinds of restrictions for the last, well, since at least the middle or maybe even earlier part of the 20th century, the early 1900s. A lot of the animals that were indigenous to this country had been killed off. There were really, the deer population were gone in a lot of states, but through environmental efforts and conservation, that sort of thing, the deer population is now thriving in Oklahoma, probably back to being overpopulated for the population of human beings that we have. But I think it's more than being outlawed as inhumane. It's been about, not hunting them when they are near or threatened by extinction. Yeah, the wolves were almost killed off, buffalo, bison. There aren't any more wild buffalo or bison, I don't think. Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. That was the word I was looking for, conservation. Yeah, Teddy Roosevelt was a champion for all those causes, and I don't know the history of all of it. I know more about the way things shook out here in Oklahoma, but at one point there just weren't deer killed in Oklahoma. There wasn't even a deer season. It was illegal. But then once they opened it back up, it was still years and years before there were. I grew up hunting in the 70s and 80s, and seeing deer in the woods in Oklahoma was rare, as opposed to nowadays. I haven't hunted in a year or two now, but killing deer in Oklahoma is not that great of a feat these days. They are all over the place. No, there may be certain species of bears, and I've never even seen a bear in the wild. So while I say that the wildlife department, like I said, I know that in the far south, four southeastern counties in Oklahoma, it's legal. I believe it's opened up to at least that side of the state. And I'm not even sure if that's black bears, brown bears, what kind of bear that is. But there's black bears, there's brown bears, there's grizzly bears, and I mean, like I said, it may be illegal to kill them in certain places, or at least certain species or subspecies, just like the bald eagle and things like that. But in general, I mean, I know people that have hunted it and eat it, and well, Zippo Daily Fix says he personally doesn't hunt because he doesn't think he could bring himself to kill something for sport, but he also doesn't have any problem with it. I have hunted most of my life, but I don't know that I've. I mean, I'll kill a snake just because it's in my presence, but I don't know that I've ever killed for sport. The way that I grew up being taught before I ever had a gun put in my hand was that the only reason for me to kill that animal was if I was going to eat it. So I wouldn't really consider that for sport when you're going to be eating it. But I don't know. You might disagree. Oh, you can still hunt buffalo there in Montana? Got to get drawn out for like a once in a lifetime tag or something? I didn't realize there were even still wild buffalo in America. Yeah, I can imagine they've got, or at least have reestablished some of those populations on the reservations. You see that? I remember I think it was the first season of Yellowstone when they brought in buffalo just to kind of make a show of the fact that they were still hunting them. Excuse me. Sean says that he has a friend in Russia who sent him a video of kids on the beach playing in the water beside wild bears and their cubs. Yeah, that sounds like the squirrels in America, or the kangaroos in Australia. I've seen plenty of videos where kangaroos are apparently a bigger nuisance than dogs or cats are around here, but squirrels in populated places in America become very desensitized. I mean, they'll walk right up and take a potato chip from you. Yeah, we have a place near McAllister. Matter of fact, I think that's what it's called, is the McAllister Ammunition Depot, Jeremy, where they do the same thing. Although they do that every year here, but hunting on that piece of land, you get drawn for those special tags, special hunts, and they are also not just archery only, but recurve only. Can't use a compound bow on that piece of property in those hunts. Yeah, and I think that I think there's been the fact that you can hunt them, Professor, maybe because of the fact that they've reestablished the population. I know that that's upset a lot of landowners and cattlemen and people that raise other kinds of livestock. But I think they worked to reestablish those wolf populations up there, didn't they? Hello, Hamish. Thank you for joining us. Glad that you're with us. Oh yeah, no, I agree completely, Jeremy. I don't. Now, I don't have. I've never mounted an animal, a deer that I've killed and put it on the wall, or any other animal, rabbits or squirrels or some of the things we hunted as kids, or even fish that I've caught. But I'm not even a big fan of catch and release because that just seems like you're screwing around with the animal. It's like harassing wildlife at its most basest level is catch and release, and it's illegal to harass wildlife. But I don't have anything against somebody who would put one or who would mount one and put it on their wall. But like I said, the caveat to me is, are you eating that animal? If you're just killing the animal just to put its head on your wall, then yeah, I do have. Now, it's a little bit different with some. We're talking about wolves, and I have hunted plenty of coyotes and killed plenty of coyotes that I never had any plan to eat, nor did I have any plan to tan their hide or anything like that. But those coyotes are a nuisance to the landowners that I was hunting on at the time. So that's a little bit different too. I don't know. You may say otherwise. Some other people would definitely say otherwise, but that's sort of the way I look at it. It's one thing if the animal is a nuisance animal, not really doing any good to the land. So that's hilarious. Zippo Daily Fix says his grandma used to bang walnuts together and the squirrels would come up to her porch to get them when they heard it. I believe it. It makes me reminds me of sitting out back in my grandmother's place, my grandmother and grandfather down in southwestern Oklahoma, just north of Granite, about 7 miles north of Granite, Oklahoma. I think about 5 miles east of Willow. If that means anything to any of you Okies who are listening. But we used to sit out there as they were snapping beans and if they weren't snapping beans and they were shelling pecans or all kinds of activities when I was a young lad. Yeah, and that is the main thing. You know, down there in southwestern Oklahoma, where I've done most of my coyote hunting, you know, you got the average home down there is sitting on 160 acres, a quarter-mile section, and you know they're going to have pets just like we do here in the city. I don't have any pets, but you know what I mean, like people do. And yet, if that dog just wanders off a little bit and gets out there in the purview of that coyote, then it could be all over. There aren't many dogs, especially you know the kinds of dogs that normally stay in a house. They're going to be any match at all compared to a coyote. Yeah, it's a big thing here, Sean. It seems like the um, catch and release, they act like that's the way to go. But I disagree. I think if you're gonna ruin that fish's day by pulling it out of the water like that, you might as well go ahead and eat him. All right, so twisted the tip of this wick down. I'm hoping we can just slide this in here. Hopefully we don't have to get too creative because I don't know exactly what materials I have here with me to get creative. I can put a IMCO wick down it because I have one in there, but I'm hoping that this copper braided Zippo type wick will work. Let's just make sure that the chimney is completely cleared, and it is. So we're just going to try to put that right in the middle and spin it as we go. Yeah, and it slides right down, no problem. So don't let it fall all the way through. And we may end up having to trim that, or maybe I'll just close it. Let's just see how it. We really want to pack that wadding in there and don't have any real need to interweave that wick or anything. We can just tuck that last part in with the last of our wadding. So let's see if we need to thin this down some more, or if that's just going to poke right in. And that's going to go in easy enough, it looks like. And I definitely think you don't want to get too much wadding in there. I think you can choke out your fuel altogether at times. But at the same time, I think you want it somewhat tight. So we would just leave it there. Tuck our wick. See that wadding is good and densely packed just right there. So get our wick shoved on down in there. Let me go get the fuel. Oh, I was also gonna kind of clean up these burrs. I'll do that here in a minute. So I get everything else out of the way here. How big was the dog, Sean? The dog Casper that fought off the coyotes. What kind of dog was it? I'd just be curious. I've had a dog or two that I got no doubt could have held their own. They were both mutts of different varieties, but one that was, the mother was a short-haired border collie type dog. Who knows what else she had with her, had mixed in there, but she ended up having pups with a Rottweiler, and that was the other perfectly capable dog I had. Bart and his mother, who actually belonged to my parents, Lady. Coyote wouldn't have stood a chance against either one of those dogs. But this dog must have been something else if you're talking about, it was a whole pack of them that this dog fought off. Yeah, I would agree with that, Sean. If you catch a small fish, and we do have slot limits and size limits and things around here, so you got to be careful what you're catching, what you're fishing for. And there are some things that you're legally required to return. Then there are some other things that like a gar and carp. I think legally you're not supposed to return them to the water. Now this is obviously going to take a little bit more to refill than just the 6 seconds that your typical Zippo would. So we'll see how long it takes here, how much fuel it decides to drink, and hopefully not make a mess all over the surface that we're working on. Hopefully it doesn't take so long to fuel this thing that my hand goes numb. We don't have any fuel falling out on the bar here yet. That last little bit there absorbed a little slow. See that fuel floating around that bevel there, or where the base is beveled. Still don't have any coming out the other end. That looks like that is absorbing pretty slow. Now we're getting a drip down there on the table. So we'll shake that off. Clean up our fuel from the table here. Well, before I clean that fuel up, let me go ahead and see about just filing up, cleaning this up a little bit. This is no big deal. This is just me personally because I don't want to get a splinter in my finger. So I would typically never do this on a lighter I was going to sell. I'm only doing this now because this is the lighter that we're going to be using, and one that's going to stay in the personal collection. So no reason not to go ahead and clean it up and at least not let that give me a splinter one day, just for the sake of keeping it original as possible. That's not bad though. You can see there where somebody else had already ground or filed some of that. Around the edges. So that pretty much gets all those burrs off. And like I said, that'll be good enough for me. Good enough for our purposes here. So we will get our fill screw, and I don't have a spare flint in there right now, but it is cleared out for one. And give this another shake so you can see where that fuel is somewhat still damp looking there. But if you get the right amount of fuel, then you really shouldn't need the O-ring. But I believe it will. Go ahead and tighten that down so it's metal to metal. No O-ring or gasket on it. And we'll just see how quickly this one. I guess we'll just call it the bear lighter for now, till we figure out what that logo is. Maybe we'll call it the Russian lighter. But now I don't remember what my point was. Anyway, there you go. Let me catch back up on the chat here, figure out where I was at. Sean says it was a big white dog that fought off those coyotes. Killed 3 or 4 of them, but was badly injured. Oh yeah, no doubt. No doubt, Jeremy. But I will say, you don't see too many coyotes running by themselves either. Coyotes are pack animals. And of all the times, I mean, I've seen and heard countless coyotes in the woods. But I can only think of a handful of times I saw a coyote by himself. Call it the USSR lighter. Looks like it may be suffering a little bit of overfilling, but still not succumbing to the vapor lock. Got a big, healthy flame there. I love these Cygnus table lighters. They confuse my old lady. It's like she thinks I'm pulling a trick on her or something. too many things to be done with lifting and then also working the roller. But I love these. I love leaving them around filled up because they last forever. But very nice lighter. Working, functioning lighter, courtesy of our friend Bill Calkins. Which I encourage you, if you are a eBay participant, if you browse the lighter website or the lighter listings all the time, check out Bill's listings. Well, I'll go ahead and type his username here in the chat. I'm not sure what it means. It sounds like acoustic, but it starts with an E. But that is his eBay username. So if you're the type of person who accumulates sellers that you like to follow, go ahead and save Bill's profile there on eBay, his seller profile, so that you get a notification when he's got a bunch of listings right now, 30 or 40 of them at least, maybe more. But he always does a lot of Zippo stuff and other lighters. I've known he was a Ronson collector for a while, but I guess he's way more prolific of a Ronson collector than he is a Zippo collector. Although he's got plenty of cool Zippos that have come through his hands, and you can see those over there in those Facebook lighter groups like Zippo Addicts and I can't remember. Vintage Lighter Marketplace, I think, is one of them, and OTLS, and I don't know. There's a few other specifically Zippo groups. There's a Ronson group, Ronson Lighter group. There's a Repaired group. All good stuff. So when you say hounds, what kind of, you're not talking about like a bird dog type hound? Yeah, I grew up with collies, and then, like I said, we had that short-haired border collie. Man, she could round up cows for us when we needed her to. We were out there when I was a teenager rounding up a young bull to steer to put a rubber band around his nuts, and man, she basically did the job by herself. Not the putting the rubber band on the nuts, but getting him cornered. But those collies that we had, those were good dogs too, friendly dogs. They just liked to get out and run around, and ended up getting run over all the time. Yeah, I like that too, Jeremy. Obviously, over time, those feet get worn, but I like that much better than felt. Even though this would be harder to replace, at least. Well, I'm not that. It's not like I'm a big detractor of the felt altogether. I don't like the dirtiness that the felt is going to attract over time. So if you found one that, or even like this, I could cut out a piece of felt, and I ought to do that that'd be kind of cool to see what it looks like. when it goes, maybe when it gets the rest of the way worn down, or maybe I'll go ahead and grind that down, or bet I wouldn't even need to grind it. I bet I could just sort of chisel it. But I don't really want to do any damage to the lighter either. When I was cleaning it up, that black stuff kept coming up. It was coming off pretty heavy with the alcohol. So I know it's somewhat degraded already. Anyway, yeah, I do like that. I like that 3 feet system, like you said. And there were, that's interesting. So we've got 2 here that are stamped up on the U-shaped part, and then this other one that is stamped on the flat part. But none of these Cygnus table lighters say penguin. They just say Cygnus. Okay, I haven't had much experience with hounds. Had a bunch of different kinds of dogs, but when my kids were young, we had a Chinese pug. Was a pretty cool little dog, really attached to my wife and my daughter. Didn't care much for me. Had a Boston Terrier at one time. That was a pretty cool dog. Well, I thought I might be in trouble there for a second when I realized how deep that lighter was. Maybe I might not actually have the tools with me here to get the re-wicking and re-wadding job done, or at least it wouldn't have been too difficult to get it done if I could have just gotten the old out. But anyway, I would definitely suggest, if you're going to do much working on old lighters, to find you a source for different, well, maybe different sizes, but definitely rods that you can cut to different lengths and use for different purposes. Create a hook on one end. That's what I've used that for before, was maybe fishing a wick out. Can't remember now. But what these are is those warning flags that they bury in the ground, like where the telephone line is when they're getting ready to do digging and stuff. This is the stem of that flag, just with the flag and adhesive removed. Bought a bunch of them several years ago, and they're about that long. And then I've just cut them and used them as I needed them. But you definitely need picks, and then you need something that you can customize into picks and other tools. My daughter and son-in-law, they've got a Great Dane over there in their house, and that dog, talk about loud, and it doesn't care how long it sits there. It could be sitting there looking out the front door and watch you walk all the way up there, and it's still going to bark. It's not like it's getting startled and barking. It's just, it barks when anybody comes to the door, whether it knows it or not, or whether the dog knows them or not. It's ridiculous. But that dog just has a booming, to where my granddaughter, who's, I mean, very familiar with these dogs, and they don't bother her at all, but there's times where it'll startle the crap out of her. Like somebody set off a bomb in the room. What's up, Dylan DePie? Glad that you have joined us. Oobla doobla. Was glad that Zippo Fanatic 77 joined us last week, and we were all able to chat for a little bit. The professor says he has a husky and he'd rather not have a dog. Are those smart dogs? Are those like German Shepherds are pretty smart dogs, aren't they? I assume that's kind of where German Shepherd came from, was a husky. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm sitting here looking at the feed, and it may be confusing me a little bit. It looks like it's way far behind. I'm not sure it's as far behind as it looks like it is. Maybe I'm just confused about where I had set certain things here. That wick's burning real nice though. Doesn't really appear to be charring up too much. Can't bloom that out too much and it still fit inside the snuffer, but we can bloom it out as far as it'll let us. So that'll be an interesting comparison just to see. It's one we fueled up 3 weeks ago. It has a big healthy O-ring on the fuel screw. And I can't remember exactly. It seems like the last time we filled it lasted at least 2 months, maybe 3. And it's still going strong here after a few weeks. But it'll be interesting to see how long this lighter will retain its fuel with no O-ring, gasket, or anything. Just tightened up, and then snuffer fitting down on top of the wick. So we'll see. I'm sure it'll make it to at least next week. And I don't know. But I would expect that this lighter will probably not get quite as good a fuel efficiency as the one that does seal off. But if you remember correctly, that I can't remember what, yeah, it was a Cupid roller lighter that I had that had a big gaping hole in the fuel screw, and it didn't hurt its fuel economy at all. Interesting. I'll have to keep that in mind there, Professor. Thin pieces of metal in your windshield wipers, huh? Do you watch a lot of lock pickers on YouTube? Our friend Rook Knight, who, well, I'm pretty sure he's a subscriber, used to be a frequent commenter underneath the videos, but he has a lock sport channel. What are you talking about, lock picking lawyer? Zippo Daily Fix. Are you talking about Rook Knight? It took me the longest time I didn't even think. I mean, I've known how to play chess since I was in the 7th grade, but it didn't even dawn on me that that was a fake name at first. Okay, the YouTube channel, Lock Picking Lawyer. Okay, I'll check that out. That's something I've never been involved with, the lock sport, but it is an interesting concept. And I will say this from watching a few of Rook's videos. I really like the way he has his set up for videos. It kind of reminds me of the old set I have. Well, the same one that I did the video for this lighter on the other day. And that same background that I had all the way going back to the summer of 2018 when I was uploading those videos from a house over in Midwest City. I am going to I'm not sure where I'm monitoring this feed at, it's just now showing me re-wicking the. So I'm going to exit this and go back in, see. See if it'll make me closer to live. Not sure how that got so far behind. Okay. Maybe that gets us closer to live anyway. So we've got this re-wadded and re-wicked, and the wick must have fallen out. It must have just had a little short wick that had fallen out when I started cleaning it the other day. Like I said, I was walking around as I was cleaning that whole thing out, and there was definitely adhesive and some paper stuck to it down there on the bottom, and then there was some adhesive around the base, and then there were some other marks, but it all came up pretty good with alcohol. And just kind of a gentle scrubbing with some organic cotton coil and alcohol, and then some common household disinfectant wipes with toothpicks. So when you say doing lock picking for work, are you talking about what exactly would that entail? I'm assuming you're not talking about as a thief. Are there people that'll come out and pick the lock in your house when you need in, when you've locked yourself out? Locksmith, yeah. Bosnian Bill. Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of ignorant to the whole lock sport scene, except for what I've seen on Rook Knight's channel. But it is an interesting idea that I wouldn't mind exploring a little more, so I'll check that out. Everybody get their taxes done already? Oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That is the one way though that I have. I remember when I owned the house over in Midwest City, I can remember seeing something on, I don't know, some news magazine on television where it was talking about how easy it was to break into different kinds of locks with bump keys and stuff like that. Well, not everybody does, Sean. That's definitely a chore I got to get on when we get off the stream here. Go ahead and get my taxes taken care of tonight. Take it easy, Professor. Glad that you were able to join us today. Hope that you can be of some help to your father-in-law. So, in the UK, Sean, how does that work? Do y'all have a similar type system to America where you got one day a year pretty much is seen as tax day, or is it a different kind of system? Azrael was in here for a minute. And I don't know if he ran off. Hopefully he's still here, is able to rejoin us. There he is. How are things in Indonesia, my friend? Yeah, I'm in a little bit different position too, Sean, because well, I'm retired. I'm disability retired from the U.S. Postal Service. And then, of course, I'm self-employed with the business of vintage cigarette lighters, vintage petrol lighters. So my situation is not exactly, the standard, typical one. Wet and warm as usual in Indonesia, huh? We are sunny and nice in Oklahoma. Jackets are still kind of useful, but we're getting to the point to where I can lose these jackets for a few months. Yeah, Sean, the way that it works here in America is, or at least state of Oklahoma, and I don't think Oklahoma is all that much different from most other states. Um, I got to pay sales tax or administer sales tax. Actually, eBay does it through every lighter that I sell now. It used to just be the lighters that I sold in Oklahoma. And actually, it may still be in Oklahoma, but for some reason, I think eBay collects it on all of them. But I'm also, in order to conduct business in the state of Oklahoma, I have to have a business license that has to be renewed. And yeah, so while I may not make a ton of money, and my main source of income is my retirement, it is a business, no doubt. And you could even say it's a profitable business. It's just not a, I haven't been selling that many lighters here of late to make all that much money. But as we were talking about a couple weeks ago, I got all these other aspects of the business that I'm working to, including the website and different reaches of that, the YouTube channel. So there are other ways that I make money other than just selling lighters. But definitely is a business. Yeah, I don't know about how that works here. I've been, I've been retired from the post office since the end of, or toward the end of 2017. But because of the way that I exited and it was kind of a mess. It took over 2 years for them to start paying me my retirement, and then they had to pay me a big back payment and all that. But as far as the government checking tax returns or not requiring them from those that are self-employed, I'm pretty sure one way or another, because I am registered as a business in the state of Oklahoma, that the IRS would be, well, it's not the IRS. You don't, there are certain things that are deductible on my personal taxes because of the LLC business. But I may be confusing categories now that I sit here and talk myself into a corner. I think what I was getting at is you say that folks who have a, what did you call it, a self-employed people in the UK don't bother doing any tax return. Yeah, I can see that, and I mean I think there's plenty of that in the US too, but once you've registered your business, then I don't think you really have any choice but to follow the rest of the rules. But anyway. And eBay doesn't really give you any choice, it's, at least as far as the business. Especially once they quit using PayPal to administer payments, where then I had to go open an account to where I could send, basically legitimizing the business for the sake of eBay. Yeah, it was a long time. It was a long time. And it wasn't the entire 2 years that I wasn't getting paid at all. At a certain point, they started paying me, but it was a estimated portion of what I was supposed to be getting paid, which turned out it wasn't even half of what I ended up getting paid every month. Anyway, yeah, it wasn't a real fun time. And really dark time in my life, at least certain aspects of it. But I'm thankful having lived through it. It certainly changed my perspective on some things, and spent those previous 25 years, where all I really ever thought about was, you know, getting up and going to work and what you're doing to raise a family. And of course, we've talked about this before, but, the wrong steps I took in uh, deciding to drown my sorrows in the bottom of a bottle. But yeah, no big deal sitting here on this side of it, but it wasn't a lot of fun at the time when it seemed like everything was so uh, straightforward, and you just couldn't figure out what was taking them so long. But at the same time, I didn't have the money to hire a lawyer or want to, go into debt to hire a lawyer just to try to, basically get the government to do what I had earned. To basically pay the benefits that I had earned in those 25 years of service. So, what's up, Shane? Glad that you have joined us. For those of you who are unfamiliar, my buddy David Wallace here in the chat is my friend Shane that I've known at least since I was 11 years old. And when I've talked before, I've made at least one video about it, about the trip that I took to the Great Northwest back in the summer, or I guess it was late summer, maybe early fall of 2019, no, 2018. That was my buddy Shane that I went to visit, who took me to a Cowboys game. Been a Cowboys fan for a long time, but had never been to a Cowboys game. And Shane is a season ticket holder for the Seattle Seahawks, so that was a great time. Oh, that wasn't any service, Azrael. There's no dignity or honor in selling stamps or sorting mail. It's, there's no more, no more pride to be had in that than there is any other. There was no sacrifice, It's not like being a policeman. It's not like being a fireman where you're putting your job on the line. It's not like being in the military where you're going to defend your country. I was just earning a living. Yeah, I think that here in the States, that's pretty common, Sean. I think it's what a lot of people do. But, I'm sure there are plenty of them don't report it too. Yeah, we were just talking about hunting a while ago with Zippo Daily Fix, Shane. So, yeah, that's an interesting one too. That's the hunting of the turkeys, because we were talking about how you don't hunt anything, or at least I don't believe you should be hunting it just to hang it on your wall. That wasn't the way I was brought up. That if you were going to kill that animal, then you were going to eat it. But that's always what's seemed odd to me about the wild turkey hunting, is that all they do is pull the breast out of it. It does seem a little wasteful. That seems a little bit more on the sport side than the eating of it. Well, glad you're back, Professor. Hopefully your father-in-law was still able to accomplish whatever he needed. Yeah, well, that's, Sean, that's what you do. But like I said, I don't know. I definitely could have. I'm not an idiot, and I should have been wise enough to see some things along the way. Uh, you know, to get yourself into a position where you feel like you have no way out. Um, there was always a way out of it. Shouldn't have let it affect me the way I did. Yeah, maybe I did sacrifice my mental health, Azrael, but to a large degree, that was my own fault. That was from me making problems for myself, which usually included liquor. And Shane can attest to that as well. Well, I wasn't a mailman, ZDF. I was a clerk. So I spent, well, the first 16, I think it was 16 years or so, on nights and overnights sorting the mail in distribution centers. And then was finally able to get a job at a station where I'd go in at about 5 o'clock and get off around 2, sorting mail again, taking it, sorting it within the station to the carriers. And then, I don't know, the last 10 years or so I spent on the window. And that was the part that it was the best, but it was still so frustrating. Oh man, I don't even want to think about how frustrating some of that was. But it was still more of a challenging job and one where I got to work with the public, which, some people would argue that's not the best place for me. Majority of my life, I've not been the friendliest person around. But it was of all the jobs, it was the one that I hated the least. I don't think I could say enjoyed the most, but there were glimmers in that window job. But like I said, the frustration, the squawking of this package containing anything fragile, liquid, perishable, or potentially hazardous, such as lithium batteries or perfume. The questions you had to ask and answer, and it's just very frustrating. The limitations that were put on you by management, pretty ridiculous. Now, when you say ground squirrel, well, that was the Shane's calling me out now on the coyotes. Yeah, we already talked about the coyotes, um, but that we're talking about a nuisance animal. You know, I wasn't taught that you just run around shooting. We were talking about bears. What we were talking about at first, but no, I did not. I did not eat one of those coyotes. Were those uh, were those raised goats, Professor? No, the bottom of the bottle does not make good glasses to see the truth. It's uh, it's way more distorted than we even imagine. So you say taxi security, keeping people in line waiting for a taxi. So like you stayed at a taxi stand, and your job was to make sure that these people didn't get accosted by people on the street or by each other. You were like security at a bus stop. Well, that's what Shane. That's what Sean was saying. Sean, who is in England, he was under the impression that we didn't hunt bear over here at all anymore. But I know that they've hunted them here in Oklahoma, which I didn't even know we had bears when I was growing up. Maybe back then we didn't. But they had that 4 county hunt for several years, but I think it's opened up. I know it's opened up to more than just those 4 counties, but it may even be statewide now. Yeah, the 2 a.m. Who was somebody else I was talking to about that the other day? Oh, I was talking to our buddy Matt with 1T. He was reminding me of those former days. So you were working security for the taxi company, Sean? This is really curious to me. Or was there something else to be secured other than the people that were waiting in line for a taxi? Okay, so it's raised goats. Our buddy Matt that I was just telling Shane about, he's got a bunch of goats that were just born. I don't know how old they are now, but I think he said he ended up with 7 babies, which wasn't quite as many as he thought because he had problems with a couple of them. That is crazy, Sean. So there was security there to just to make sure that the people in line got in line when and in the order they were supposed to. I think here in America they just fight over the taxis. Well, and to be honest, I've been in a taxi or two. Nowadays, I don't know. I guess there's still taxi companies. I rode an Uber over to my daughter's house in Midwest City a couple of months ago. But back in the day, when my wife and I were drinking and didn't want to drive home, we'd taken a taxi occasionally, but you would always call them. It was at least here in Oklahoma, it wasn't really a situation where taxis are queued somewhere or just posting up on a street, on a busy street, on a busy night in New York or wherever. So Shane, they did away with one hunt, but okay, it doesn't open up till August. I got you. So they just did away with the spring hunt. That's really a good idea, Professor, and I think a noble pursuit. I think the more that you can use of it, the better. Problem is a lot of those animals, especially the kind that you're killing for depredation purposes or whatever, um, you know, coyotes stink. Um, you know, but yeah, there's nothing wrong with tanning the hide and you know, yeah, I think that's an appropriate thing to do. But you're talking about for animals that you've eaten as well. The rabbit, squirrel, goat. Interesting. I had no idea. I've never really lived in a big city either, though, Sean. Was that in a big city in England? You said your mother-in-law had goats had 14 babies. How many goats did she have? She have 7 goats. Uh, it always seemed funny to me. It still seems funny to me to call a cab, but I don't know. I've had plenty of people who called me and asked me for a ride, but a cab, something I never really thought about. But yeah, we did it too, more than once from down here in Bricktown back to the house in Midwest City at the time. I don't remember ever doing it before we were over there in the house on Railroad, even out at 74th and Anderson Road. I don't know. I don't remember ever taking a cab out there. Yeah, that's true too, Shane. I know there's always, um, typically when you get large numbers of any kind of wildlife, it's going to affect the property that they are using. So, yeah, I guess there's all kinds of exceptions or reasons. But I guess basically I was just trying to come up with a simpler way of saying that you don't just kill stuff to kill it. Interesting. Well, the way my buddy Matt explained it to me is that those goats, they usually have twins, but then sometimes they have triplets, and occasionally they'll just have one. But I didn't know. I thought maybe they actually, I mean, I've seen dog litters that were, well, I remember one that we had that was 13, but I've seen other dogs where it was just a few, 2 or 3. Someone else paid for the cab for you? It sounds like it must have been a bad situation there, Professor. Yeah, yeah. On the driveway into Rose State College in Midwest City, Shane tried to kill me. When was that? Summer of 1989. So somewhere in the neighborhood of what, 20, I don't know, 11, 34 years ago, 33 years ago. It looked a lot worse than it was. But your mom sure was pissed. Yeah, and I've never had any DUIs, but I did have a wreck or two that alcohol related that shouldn't have happened. Keith says he kills ladybugs just to kill them. You know, Keith, we got these bugs that fly around here all the time, and they show up in swarms. Just I don't know if it's in the summertime. It's during the warmer months, and maybe it's not always at the same time. For part of the reason that I'm about to, I don't know if I'm going to suggest this or just put it out there. Supposedly, those bugs, they look like ladybugs, but they're not. They're some kind of genetically engineered thing that they created up here at Oklahoma State University that they released to, I don't know, get some kind of effect out of the environment. What do you mean 91? It wasn't 91. That was way before you left. Well, I can't imagine why not, Shane. I can't remember. I've heard them talk about that. What part of the problem is with turkeys, but I can't remember what it is. You graduated in 90. But we had that wreck happened. Did that wreck not happen the summer after was that the summer after you graduated? Maybe that was. That might have been the summer of 90. I can't remember. Jeff was living in Tahlequah at the time. I don't know. I may be confusing summers. What are you talking about? Disease? Yeah, Sean, it was good talking to you, man. Hopefully you can join us next week, but either way around it, we'll see you when we see you, man. I appreciate you being here this week. Yeah, so maybe that was the summer after you graduated. I thought it was late in the summer. I thought Jeff went up there late in that summer after I graduated. Like maybe you got that car right before your senior year, or right at the first part of your senior year. Ah, I see, Professor. So nothing nefarious. It wasn't a forced ride home or anything like that. Are you saying the Asian beetles look like ladybugs? Okay, so maybe the third. Man, I'm really letting those summers run together. But I'm not sure that I trust your memory either. You have reminded me of a thing or two, though. Like the fact that you were up here at John's house in, what year was that? Late 92 or early 93? I didn't remember that. So does anybody know what I'm talking about those lab created bugs? Is that what you were saying was they're for disease, Shane? Is that what you were saying? Well, I really thought it would take me a little bit longer to get all that wadding out of that lighter. So I should have had more. I guess I could go ahead and fuel up my lighters. Oh, turkeys are dying from disease. Huh, what kind of disease is that? Bird flu? Surely somebody knows what I'm talking about these lab created bugs. Yeah, I bet it's the bird flu. Isn't that the same reason that the egg prices got out of control supposedly a while back? Where suddenly here in Oklahoma City anyway, we were paying $8 a dozen for eggs. It actually got cheaper to buy the premium organic eggs, brown eggs, all that kind of stuff, than just to buy the regular, you know, regular white eggs. Those originally had a wick in them that was stiffer than your MCO type, but didn't have the copper reinforcement woven through it. Sort of like those fiberglass wicks that were in the Beatty jet lighters. Not that the material looks or feels the same, just that it acts the same. But I think this copper woven wick would be the way to go. But you could use that MCO wick just as easily, but you saw when we put it down in there, it didn't resist too much. We just tightened down the first part of it and spun it and went right on down. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and wind it down so that I'm not like those people that Sean was talking about in the UK, those self-employed people who just don't file their taxes. I'm going to go ahead and get that done this afternoon. But I will try to have some kind of project for us to do next week as we are visiting. And now I can go ahead and do the show and tell video for this lighter. And I don't know, maybe we can actually get that emblem identified. Maybe it was a souvenir from National Park. Sort of makes me think of, like I said, Yellowstone, Yosemite. And without the star, I don't think it's related to the state of California, but who knows? But it is working good now. I'm sorry we didn't hear from our friend Eastwad Doonflam this week, or Bill Calkins, or J-Ro Lights. We haven't heard from NAFTA in, man, it's been weeks. So anyway, I hope everything's going okay with NAFTA up in Tulsa. Or gnarly news up in Bethany. I can't remember. He's either in Bethany or North Oklahoma City. Haven't heard from him in a while either. But I appreciate all of you that were able to join in. Very cool, Shane. Yeah, I'll give you a holler here in a little bit after I get these taxes done. So Zippo Daily Fix, Keith Ferrier, Professor's Garage, Shane, Zippo Daily Fix. I forgot somebody last week from the very beginning. Who was that I was chatting with at the beginning last week? I don't know, it'll come to me. I'll thank him again on a later stream if I can remember. But I appreciate all you guys coming along today. Azrael, glad that you were able to join us. Hamish, Dylan DePie for a minute there. So like I was saying, hopefully I'll have at least the show and tell video for this lighter for you this week. And then we'll have another project that we'll do live during the stream. Until next time.